All right, what's up, y'all? Another episode of Accelerated Results Podcast, and I am your host, Frank Clayton. Remember, we just want to see you win. I'm excited. Got another bomb guest for you guys, for coaches, performers, or parents, whatever you are. I like bringing quality coaches on here, quality people in general, to help you, give you some tools and some pointers. And I have not failed you yet, and I don't plan on failing you. I have another super guest, Miss Erika Moyer, here from Princeton University. Let me tell you about this young lady. Let me tell you. So Erika right now, she's part of the athletic staff over at Princeton University. She had joined the staff. She's the strength and conditioning coach. She joined the staff in 2001. So during the pandemic, or like kind of the tail end of the pandemic, I guess, which is probably weird within itself. Right.
Yes,
Right. So physical education director at Hood College. That's awesome. So moved on from there, came over to Princeton. She was the Blazers' first strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah. Yep.
First.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah. So like that's what so my story is I came up through Division III, and if anybody's ever worked in Division III, you know that you wear a lot of hats, which is great because you get a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. So like you said, physical education director on top of being the strength and conditioning coach, which was great. Got a chance to learn about curriculum and work with like the registrar and the provost, which was like huge for a resume builder. And then I had the opportunity to design and create and construct, a strength and conditioning department, the way I saw fit. Which was huge for me. A lot of good lessons I took out of that, do's and don'ts. So a lot of valuable things that I brought from my experience in Division III to the Princeton Boathouse, which is very similar, very similar. We're right in a boat bay. We have a nice, hammer strength setup with the racks, and, we throw open the bay doors and we get it going there on Lake Carnegie. So we get a lot done with kind of, we just have bars, dumbbells, bands, and that sort of thing. So we do a lot with kind of little bit of equipment, little bit of space, which I've taken all the tools that I've learned in Division III, how to do a lot with a little, and I brought them over to Princeton. Yeah. So it's been good. It's been good.
That's dope. I mean, that translates, and you said it right there, being able to come from a little and then get to a space where you have more, but you're still able to utilize some of that skill. And so it's just like you like a kid in a candy store, right? And being able to use those skills. And I think that's dope in a sense, right? You think about athletes who want to go from, right? I assumed you went to high school, right? You went to high school, then you went to D3, and then, think about an athlete moving up, then you go to the big school, right? The D1 school. And so you have this like trajectory of like an athlete. So, I hope Princeton enjoys you right now while they have you. And I'm not putting any rumors out there. I'm just trying to prophesy over your life.
I love that. Manifest.
Right. So there may be a call one day that, from another organization that you might like to work with. So we're going to enjoy you while we have you here. Absolutely. And you talked about it already. And the first question was, how did you get to Princeton?
Yeah. Yep. So just kind of circling back a little bit. So I graduated with a degree in sports nutrition and dietetics. I played soccer at a small Division II university in northern Pennsylvania. And I always knew that I wanted to work with athletes. As a soccer coach, as a soccer player, we didn't have a strength coach. In my Division II school, I think strength coaches were really like starting to come up and have really exploded now. But so I would run like small team trainings with my team, we're going to lift, because I love lifting. Right. So I'm going to organize this. We're all going to do, kettlebell stuff. We're all going to meet in the weight room. So without even really knowing what a strength coach was, I was kind of our team's strength coach. So when I graduated with my degree in sports nutrition, I knew I wanted to do something that work with athletes. I didn't want to work, I didn't want to be a dietitian or nutritionist and work behind a desk. So my first job out of college is I moved to a neighboring city in Pennsylvania because I'm from a small town. So I'm like, if I want to do something in fitness, I got to get out of my small town because there's not really a niche for it there. So I kind of just pinpointed the next city. And so I moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So the capital of Pennsylvania, small city, smaller than Philadelphia, but I knew that there would be some sort of market there for me to work. And I found a job doing corporate fitness in downtown. So I managed a corporate fitness facility for about 3 years and I really loved it. And that also gave me like managerial skills or organizational skills, which was huge. And really how to like talk to people. It was in the Capitol complex. So, we had like governors and, a lot of like high ranking officials, come through and work out. So it's kind of how to handle, those people and build those relationships as well. So I managed that fitness facility for 3 years and I kind of like stalled and I'm like, I need to do something where I'm in a gym or I'm just kind of with athletes, kind of like back in my zone. So my good friend who I graduated with, he actually became the first strength coach at my alma mater. Wow. So I would see it on Instagram, him posting like the kids lifts. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what is he doing? I didn't really know about strength and conditioning. And then I touched base with him and he's like, yeah, I'm a strength coach. I got the job at Mansfield, our old school. And so I just researched and figured out how to like get my certification, got certified. Got my first job at Swarthmore College, which is a small Division III school by Villanova here outside of Philadelphia. In the area. And my best friend lived in the area and I actually called her up. I said, hey, if I apply for this job, can I sleep on your couch? Cause it was, it was no money at the time.
Right.
So she's like, yeah, of course, like whatever, sleep on my couch. So I actually, got the job and I was like, yo, I'm coming. Like, so I actually slept on her couch for 2 years, like made barely any money, but like I learned so much. Like that first job as an assistant was long hours, but like, my mentor, Chris, who was the head coach there, he taught me so much. And I also did some assistant coaching with the women's soccer team there, which was right up my alley with soccer. So I got some experience doing that as well. And then moved to Goucher College, got my first head coaching job there at Goucher in Maryland, and then moved on to Hood and then moved on to Princeton. So it's just kind of been like this, like build up this, exactly. Like just kind of enjoying the process, like sitting on my friend's couch, not making any money, but like had the best time. And that's, I think what's like really great about the process and enjoying it is that like you can look back now and we can have this conversation now and just say like, yeah, it was tough. And like, yeah, it was rocky, but like that, I couldn't be where I am today without all those steps.
I love that. Because 2 things come up for me, right? Well, actually 3 things. And the first one it came up while you were talking, and I wanted to make sure I got it out. I talked to the athletes. I talked to them a lot about being, right? By being. And so just thinking about you on your team, you were being the strength and conditioning coach before you even knew what it was. You were being the leader, right? Because that was just in you. That's who you were. It wasn't like, I'm trying to do this strength and conditioning thing. It was like, I'm being this. This is who I am. Right. So that was one of the things that came up for me. 2 is like, again, how enjoying the process. You said it, like enjoying that process of being somewhere and then going to another place. But truthfully, I had no idea of any of that, which is, I love to hear people to me are heroes, right? I'm a big comic book fan and I love hearing people's origin story.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's your origin story.
Yeah.
And I loved hearing about that.
It's crazy. Yep. I can't believe we never talked about that, which is kind of cool. Like, yeah.
Right. I love hearing. I'm all like, wait, what? Couch? You slept on a couch?
Yeah, right. It was actually a futon, man. My back still remembers it.
So what's your mission now while you're here? Like,
that's a great question. I think at each school that I've now that I'm here, I think my experience at Princeton has been amazing. It's been one of a kind. And I think if I were to look back at my experiences at all my other places, the mission hasn't changed, I think, for me. even though I've kind of moved up to a higher level, moved up to kind of working specifically with 1 or 2 teams now, and not, 12 or 13, which is common at Division 3. I'm a people person first. So it's really about building relationships. I think that's like one of my biggest assets, and like one of the reasons why I'm able to connect so well with people, and specifically with the athletes. So like, if you were to, like, my mission right now is to just build as many connections as I can with the kids, and like create those lasting connections that go beyond these 4 years. And I think I've been able to do that successfully. Just my track record, I'm still in contact with a lot of athletes that I've coached in the past, and, we're still friends on Instagram, and, having conversations about, what are you doing now? And like, how's life, and just touching base has been like huge for me. So the X's and O's are important, and we obviously need that to get better and to reach our end goal. But my mission is to always just connect with the athletes and be a people person first. And then that helps create the buy-in, and then that helps kind of build that relationship to where, they want to perform and maximize the results and be the best they can.
I love it. I love it. And that applies whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, or whether you're an athlete. Like, the idea of building relationships is so important. I love that that's the mission, and eventually and essentially that's the goal, right? Because some people play sports for a lifetime, some people play sports for a moment, but we're always going to be building relationships in the areas that we are. We are built for each other. So what do you see in building those relationships? Like, you're having conversations, you're hearing stories. What would you say are athletes' greatest needs right now?
Athletes' greatest needs right now, I think, are various. I think with a lot of the social media doesn't help us with kind of like athletes seeing, in regards to their rehab, in regards to their training program. I think it's overload, like information overload, kind of from all aspects. And a lot of times athletes will have, a trainer back home. So it's like a lot of different voices kind of like playing, at one time. And I think I would give the advice to that athlete is to just kind of like lock in and buy into, if you're home, and you have a trainer at home, I think you buy into that, and if you're here on campus and you have a trainer here who's working hands-on with you, that's kind of like the voice, and that's kind of, the athletic trainer, you know what I mean? Don't let all these kind of outside, influences hinder your performance, in that aspect. Just because I think athletes kind of, they get bogged down with, it's just like information overload, with social media, and they might have multiple trainers and things like that. So it's like,
I've been that trainer.
What's that?
Said I've been that trainer at home.
Yeah. It's just like, so it's tough. It's just kind of like it is, and you can't blame them. You know what I mean? It's just like you get, so much information from all these different areas. But I think that the biggest need is to just kind of just have athletes just streamline and just kind of hone in on one plan. And I know that can be tough, but I think that's something that we can work on for sure.
Absolutely. And I think part of that, right, because me being that, I've been that trainer. Like, when you come home, we train, you got to train, you come with so what I've always tried to do is like, what did your coach give you? What did your strength and conditioning coach give you for your home workouts? Like, a lot of times when you have a strength conditioning coach at school, they give you a program or whatever they come do over the summer. So I've always tried to at least align as much as I can with what we're going to do. So I think, again, it's that relationship. And when I have had the opportunity to reach out to another coach and say, hey, I've noticed this, I see you've noticed this, like, how do we collaborate?
Right. Yep. And that's huge.
Yeah. So that what you're talking about, right? All those voices, what do they say? One band, one sound.
Right. Yes.
We're
Drumline.
operating in that mode. We're operating in that mode, as opposed to like these conflicting perspectives and techniques and things like that. So yeah, definitely. I think that, and I think, I would say an informed athlete is a faster athlete, right? Informed athlete is a faster athlete. So, as being part of that need for collaboration and cohesion, I think is a great piece of advice that you've given.
Totally.
Absolutely. And so how can coaches better support athletes?
I think listening a lot. I think as a strength and conditioning coach, it's really easy, and the weight room kind of provides this space where, like, they'll come in from practice, they're tired, and it's just like the weight room, and the coach might not be in the weight room, so athletes, and that's part of the reason why I enjoy being in that setting, because it's my safe space as well. So a lot of athletes can kick back, and they can talk a little bit more free.
Right.
Which I think is like that's like so invaluable to the strength and conditioning coach, that like you're gonna get inside perspectives from athletes that their coaches might not get, right? Because you're not out on the launch with them every day. You're not involved in the day-to-day necessarily of the sport practice, right? But you're kind of in this space where the athletes can feel a little bit more free to be themselves and talk free. So for me, like, I'll hear athletes will come in, I'm tired, and they have this going on, and we just had midterms at Princeton, and so like it's a super stressful time for athletes. So I think, athletes will have a harder time, maybe voicing those opinions and those feelings to coaches. But I think when they do, I think that coaches can get a lot of insight by just, listening, I think, and hearing the athletes, and kind of just taking that on, because we all want to win, we all want to be the number one, the best crew in the world, or, and the best crew in the nation. But I think that if, an athlete knows that we care, like, hey, I see that you're stressed, and they voice that in the huddle, hey, I know that this is midterms, and I know that this is a hard week for you guys. So in the weight room, we're going to deload, we're going to dial back. And I know that the coaches at Princeton do a really good job of that, as well. But I think if they can take those little nuggets of information that they hear and just apply that to the program, I think that's really, really helpful. And that's what I do. The first thing I do when the athletes come in is I say, how are we doing? How are we feeling?
Right,
and they have no problems telling me, that I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that. Cool. So, if that's the general consensus, and, that's also comes from collaboration with the coaches, how, are we doing AT, what are we getting into at practice? So, it's just kind of taking all the tools that you kind of hear. And then, if you need to modify a program on the fly, then, you do so. But, just to run it back to your question, I think coaches, you can really take that, take those little nuggets and tweak on the fly if they need to.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable. It's so interesting that you talked about how they're a little more freer, right? A little more willing to share some information. That's also been my experience. The weight room is like, speaking of that being, right, before I got into kind of the performance coaching aspect, the mental aspect of it, I was the strength and conditioning coach, and the weight room is almost like the therapy room.
Yep.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And you can kind of dive into them. One of the things that I think about is even how, like, qualify, edify, inform. Right.
Okay.
Qualifying, edifying, inform. Right. Qualifying. What's like you said, what's going on? Right. You're doing this. What's going on? And then figuring out, okay, based on what's going on, now let me edify you. Let me remind you who you are and how you handle stuff. And then I'm going to inform you. And then I'm going to give you the information about, how we can work together or how we can approach where you're at. So that's a great tool, I think, for coaches. And I think that, you hit all the marks. That, how are you doing?
Yeah. Yep. It's huge. And
how
like,
are you doing?
Are you?
Yep.
You'll get so much information that, like, sometimes it's overload. Sometimes like, but it's really, it's helpful. Like, it's invaluable. So I think a lot of strength coaches, I think, are guilty of like getting wrapped up into like, questionnaires and, HRV, the readiness, like, like if you just literally ask a simple question, just how are you? Like, you can get a lot of information just from that.
Yeah. And I think coaches too. I think sometimes parents, coaches, like even teammates, right? Just taking a moment to check in.
Yep.
It could work wonders. And thinking about all the type of athletes that you coached, what's your favorite type of athlete to coach?
Ooh, that's a good question. My favorite type of athlete to coach is one who is, I always say, like, for athletes, take accountability like for your process. So I think the athlete that is my favorite is one who is just dedicated, but beyond, like they're doing their extra reps. If they're injured, they're going to see the athletic trainer. They're coming to me ahead of time and asking for modifications. So it's like an athlete who, might not be the most, the gifted on the team, but they're coming down and asking me for, hey, what can I, how can I get another lift in? Can you program me, another lift in? Or, they're going to see the athletic trainer if they have a nagging injury. So I think my favorite athlete to work with, and I will absolutely go out of my way for this athlete, if it's like, hey, I want to get another lift in, or, my schedule is crazy. Like, can we work out something where I can come down and get this lift in? I will totally go out of my way for an athlete who wants to get better and knows that they have a long way to go to get there, but is willing to put the work in. So I respect that, and I think that athlete is totally my favorite.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, there's all kinds, and definitely that one that takes responsibility.
Yes.
And kind of is bought in is
yes.
important.
Yeah.
And then so thinking about, so athletes, they're people, but thinking about just people in general, whether you work with them or whether you're around them, like what are some characteristics that you admire in most people?
Characteristics I admire. I think somebody who is willing to just work to get to their dreams. I just think about kind of how my process of getting here, sleeping on a couch and just kind of knowing that like they're made to do something and they're going to get there kind of, by any means necessary. I think, grit, I think grit is huge. I think, tenacity is huge, and the ability to overcome obstacles, because we're all going to have them, and just how you respond to those is huge. So I think somebody who just refuses to take no for an answer, and kind of fights by any means necessary, is because I think I'd like to think I have those characteristics. So I think I really admire those in other people.
Right.
So yeah, I would have to say that.
Good. That leads me to another question, right? You said you think you feel like you have those characteristics. Like if someone was in a room and they were talking about you, what are some of the things you believe they would say?
Yeah, I think that people would say that I am a people person, like first and foremost, like what I said. I think that I have a really good ability to, quiet athletes, quiet people. Like I can talk to anybody. I think that my loved ones and, some of my athletes and coaches would say, like, I can hold a conversation with anybody. So I think that my ability to gauge the temperature in the room and to gauge body language and gauge how people are feeling, and that kind of like rules my approach to them. So, are they a little bit more shy? Are they have a lot of energy? I can flip my switch on a dime to be able to come correctly to that situation. So I think that is definitely one of the big things that people would say. I have a lot of energy. I think, I'm always upbeat and happy. I think people are always like, you never have a bad day, like, which is crazy because of course, you have bad days, right. But you always put on a good, as a strength coach, you got to be the energy person, you got to be the person who brings the energy. So of course you're going to see me at my best. You know what I mean? I never want to come in and project whatever's going on in my life to you guys. So I think people would say I'm always happy, which, I do enjoy putting that out into the world, just energy, happiness, tenacity. I think that, my story and my come up to working at Princeton is kind of a testament to that. And so, yeah, I think people would say that.
Nice. And so, I want to shift the gears a little bit and ask you like some more technical stuff. Like, how do you work on your craft? Right.
Yeah. So
athletes are doing their thing all the time. Like, what does that after hour grind look like for you to get better?
Yeah, so totally. So honestly, like lifting weights is huge. I know people are like, nobody wants to hear that the strength coach lifts weights. What? Like mind blowing. But yeah, so lifting weights and like always like toying with things. So I did say something about social media and the internet, but the internet has been like huge, like a really great tool. So like, seeing what, other schools are doing, being able to connect with people across the country is invaluable. And then, I'll save something on Instagram that I see. And then the next day I'll come in and I'll, tie a band up, I'll tie a bar up, and then I'll try it for myself and just kind of see how that feels. So that's been huge. Connecting, of course, with, my mentors and talking, with, people that I've connected with, such as yourself throughout the, strength and conditioning and rowing has been huge. I've been able to make so many like invaluable connections, as well as, the strength staff here at Princeton, it is great, and bouncing ideas off of them is huge as well. And then, reading, I try and read as much as I can. Like right now I'm reading 48 Laws of Power, which is which has been like one of the wildest books I've ever read.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I got it in my bag too. Yeah. So just kind of like read, and so it's not in things outside of strength and conditioning. So it's like the stuff like, 48 Laws of Power. And I see you have, Ego is the Enemy. Like that's a great book too. So that it all ties into like making you a better coach. Like, can you check your ego? Can you realize when your ego is starting to like play with your emotions, and like that can only make you a better coach. So it's not even books about the X's and O's, but stuff like in the background about how like you are as a person, your emotions, your subconscious. So I'm into like books like that as well. So
nice. And so you talked about social media, right? You mentioned that, and part of Accelerated Results coaching is really that's one of our main points, right? We focus on helping athletes, the 5 things that athletes deal with the most: anxiety, depression, isolation, suicide prevention, and social media influence, right? Because it's not social media itself as much as it is, because social media is a tool.
Yeah. Yep.
And like any tool, you can help or hurt yourself, right? And so thinking about using social media to help yourself is something that you talked about. Learning new stuff that you might have spent time or took longer to research. You can see a video and try it. Yep. Right. So that's the second point. Like that experimentation as a strength and conditioning coach, or as a coach in general, is so huge. The freedom to kind of try new stuff, and then you're willing to put your body on the line. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
to like really get that experience of it.
Yep.
Is great than those books. I think you make a great point to always, keep reading and things like that. And again, that's for athletes, that's for parents, that's for coaches, to be able to always kind of expand what we do. But I want to talk about parents though, like thinking about, right, your athletes that come to you are adults, right? Some of them it's their first year being an adult. Some of them might be 17 and then turn 18, right? So parents still play a huge role in their development, in their as an athlete and as a person. So as far as that, what we like to call here is our athletic identity, right? Like who we see ourselves, or who we believe other people see us as an athlete, right? How does a parent play, what role does a parent play in the development of that athlete's identity?
Yeah, I can only speak about, my experience with my parents. Yeah. So like, I had the most amazing parents growing up. And I think parents are, your pillars. They're the people that you learn from, and they're your greatest teacher. I think can be one of your greatest teachers. And should be. And so my parents were always so supportive of me. And one of the biggest things is that I from my athletic perspective, and why I credit myself as being like a decent soccer player in college, is that I played a ton of sports, and they always encouraged me to do so. And I think that, the more and more we see this research coming out where athletes not specializing is right, better for our development. So I think that that's one of the biggest things for parents to take away, is that like, let your athletes try a bunch of different things. Let them. So I played soccer, basketball, and track, and I was not good at basketball. I'm pretty fast, so I was all right at track. And then I played soccer. So and like I wasn't good at basketball, but like I still played basketball. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, you might not be good at something, but like stick with it. You know what I mean? See it through, and like you will take those skills that you learned in basketball. And I took those skills and I applied it to soccer. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like pivoting and cutting and changing
Right. You
direction
don't
and
know
all
how
that
it's
stuff.
developing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it's like, you know, you might not, I was really bad at basketball. Like it's actually embarrassing. You know what I mean? But like I played and, you know, I'm sure part of it was like, you know, I got to hang out with my friends and this, that, and, you know, I was an athlete. I'm an athlete by heart. So like, it was fun for me to do so. But like, if you can like stick it out and just take those tools that you learn in that sport that you might not be great at and just try it to, you know, apply that to your main sport. And if we're talking about, you know, specifically, you know, rowing, I think rowing athletes, the biggest thing that they can do is to just be more athletic and play more, to be more athletic is to play other sports, you know,
Right.
and to get that experience out of the boat because those things are only going to help you in the boat, you know, timing, rhythm, cadence, you know, those things that you learn, that's gonna help you so much. So I think parents, if they can encourage their athletes to just try as many things as possible, like my parents did, I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's funny you say like that cadence and time. It sounds like rowers should be just dancers, like to take some dance classes.
Yeah, like it's huge. That's like honestly, it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. And so just closing up here, thinking about all the things. One of the things I did want to ask about is like, we talked about these things, these challenges that athletes. I think more so rowing is such a mental game in rowing, right? It's really output to output, right? The more you put out, the more you're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
And noticing some of those, what are some of the biggest like mental hurdles that you've noticed that rowers kind of go through or those challenges?
Um, yeah, one of the biggest, so when I first got to Princeton, I had no idea like about rowing. I had to talk to a bunch of people and then just get some insight. And then once I got here, I got on a launch and like you said, like, I think rowing is probably like the hardest sport I've ever seen, like in action. Cause you know, if you're rowing an 8, it's 8 people and, you know, you're relying on 8 people to get us through.
Right.
You know what I mean? I told another strength coach, I was like, it's not like soccer. It's not like basketball where if you're tired, you know, you can kind of like, okay, I'm a step in the corner here. I'm like, you know, I'm going to catch my breath. It's like, you literally can't do that, you know, when you're rowing, you know, with a team, you know, with a team. So I think that, you know, mentally it is one of the most difficult things that I've seen an athlete do. And I've coached a lot of different athletes. So just speaking kind of from a mental standpoint, I think it's hard for athletes to block out the noise. I think a lot of time, and to kind of get in their zone. You know, I've seen athletes, you know, and if they have a process, like they should do their process. I know a lot of rowing athletes, they have kind of a, you know, a routine that they do, you know what I mean? And you know, warm up, you know, they put their headphones on, they listen to music or, you know, whatever they do to get in their zone. But I think that they should find a process and find what works for them and stick with it. You know what I mean? So I think that that's really, really helpful. I think that the best rowers and the most successful rowers, right? You have a routine, you know, I have this thing that makes me, you know, feel good in the morning. I eat this thing so I think that that's huge. I think I find, you know, athletes who tend to struggle, right? They kind of wake up at, you know, whatever time and then they do whatever kind of warm up and then they just kind of
happens to
yeah, it's just like they expect, you know, maybe there's an expectation that that success is just going to happen. You know what I mean? But encouraging them to get in a rhythm, you know what I mean? Find what works for you. You know, going back to taking accountability of your process. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you might not have a team warm up, you know, or, you know, for rowing in a regatta because things are crazy and, you know, you might, but if you don't have a team warm up, then you need to take that ownership and you need to warm yourself up and you need to figure out what you need to do to get yourself prepared and ready. So I think that accountability of finding your rhythm, finding your routine and applying that, I think that's where the best and most successful rowers are. And those ones who, you know, might have some mental blocks or might struggle with feeling good, you know, right, you know, at the line, you know, I think that could go back to, well, what did you do to prepare?
Right. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Absolutely. Routines, process, practices, right? That's what we're all about at Accelerated Results Coaching, but also like providing some of that information, right? To help athletes who may not have thought about that.
Yeah.
Coaches who may not have thought about saying, hey, athletes get be prepared,
Yep.
things like that, or you know, have a process or a tool, right? All about tools, right? Using those tools again to benefit us. And so, last question, closing out. What's more important, competency or confidence for you, right? Because you know
Ooh.
that I'm just take it back old school, right? And this is how I see this question, right? We think about back in the day when we used to go to the mall, it was about getting phone numbers,
Yep.
right?
Okay. All right. All right.
It was about, hey, how many phone numbers can you get? How many phone numbers can I get? Right. And it was before cell phones. So we used to take our pen. You had to have a pen.
Yo, how old
Right.
are you?
Right. So you have to write numbers down, right? It's about getting phone numbers, right? Uh, and so the question is like, what's more important? Competency. Do you have a smooth line, or are you efficient, or confidence when it comes to sports?
Confidence all day. Like going back to what I said about basketball, like I was not good at basketball, but when I was playing basketball, you could not tell me nothing. Like I was going out there. I had the Air Force Ones. First of all,
Right.
the Air Force. Why I was
Like
playing
horrible
basketball in Air Force
basketball
One?
shoes.
Why? That's probably where my problem came from. Okay, like bricks on my feet.
Right.
But I was lacing up my Air Force Ones. Like I was going out there ready to play. Like you couldn't tell me nothing. Like so, I think that's huge. It's like you could you know, in the inverse, you could have them, you know, be the smartest, most technically sound athlete, but if you're not confident, like you're not going to be able to get yourself to the line. You know what I mean? You're not going to get yourself through the finish line. So I think that if you're confident, that's half the battle. That's going to be the catalyst to you, you know, finding out what your process is and finding out how to use the tools to get competency.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's the first step. And just, you know, you have to believe in yourself. You know, if you don't have anything, you know, you should have that at, you know, at the very least. So even if you're not good at it, like I was, you just got to believe that you are, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's gonna take you far. So
I love it. I love it. And if you have some troubles with that confidence, or with your confidence, you know, that's what we're about. Accelerated Result Coaching. You know, email us, set up a coaching call. We can help you with confidence. Erika, thank you, sister. I appreciate you. I love having you on. We definitely will do a part 2.
totally.
I got to do it in person, man. I got to come out there.
Dude, I'm waiting.
Campus and all that great stuff. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you all for tuning in, for watching this video. Again, if you feel like you are struggling with anything, find someone to help you. You do not have to go through it alone. There's all kind of prevention and support systems out there for you. Again, we are Accelerated Results Coaching Podcast, where the goal, we just want to see you win. See you on the next episode. Thanks, you guys.
All right, y'all.